Just showing you a few of the things that we're going to use today. This is King Arthur flour, and for wheat, grinding in my Whisper Mill, I really like Wheat Montana. It's the best. The Prairie Gold will make a really light colored bread, and the Bronze Chief makes a heartier red whole wheat bread. Some of the ingredients we'll be using in our basic whole wheat bread today: honey, olive oil, dough enhancer, sea salt, and yeast, and Vegeline pan spray. You need to have all the same size and same type loaf pans, and I've never been happier with any others than these Norpro pans that we sell at Marmy's Kitchen. We're going to be making basic whole wheat bread. My mixer's plugged in. You do have the drive cover on your blender drive here. You set your bowl on. It does have a little bit of a wobble to it. That's normal. The dough hook is attached here. We're just going to take the little dough guard and snap it right over the center post. And you can leave that on there permanently. If it wears out, you can just replace it. They're very inexpensive. This is a cover. I don't usually use this at any time when I'm making bread. I do use the splash right now to prevent flour from coming out. Okay, we want to begin. I use my blender that comes with a Bosch for a measuring cup because it holds 6 cups of liquid, and that's what we're going to start with. This is 6 cups of hot water. If you're not used to how hot the water should be, you need to use a thermometer. If your water is too hot, it will kill the yeast. If it's not hot enough, your yeast won't activate. You do not want to get over 120 degrees. The next thing we're going to add is 2/3 cup of honey. But if you'll use the same measuring cup and put your oil in there and then your honey next, honey will slide right out. The honey and oil, it doesn't matter if you put either or in first, but we're going in this order: honey, and then olive oil is what I'm using. You can use any type of oil. And then in my basic whole wheat bread, I do like to use a dough enhancer. Dough enhancer has vitamin C in it, and it has also some milk-based products that help the phytic acid in the wheat. Next, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of sea salt, our freshly milled flour. I used a Whisper Mill for this. We've already talked about that in flours and grains. It's already milled. I do like to use it warm. And we don't measure, but we just want to add enough to make a thick batter here. I haven't turned my machine on at all. Now I'm adding the sap yeast. I'm adding it right on top of that warm flour. And the reason I've done them in that order is if perchance you got your water just a little bit too hot, your yeast is sitting on top of that hot water. All your other ingredients mixed with that hot water will tame it down just a little bit. And so now my yeast is on top, and I'm going to turn my mixer on speed 1. I just want to have a thick batter. All our ingredients except for all the flour in there. You can see how quickly it incorporates it. And now we're just going to give it a rest period. This can be anywhere from about 10 minutes to about 30 minutes. The reason I do this step is it's just like a little bit of extra second rising. It makes my bread just a little bit softer, I think, and so I do this little step. Plus, if you've forgotten anything, sometimes it comes to your mind during this time, and you can add it in before it's too late. And also, you can make sure that your bread is going to rise nicely, that your yeast is active. You can see that the dough is, or actually it's batter, it's not dough yet, has risen up in the bowl about 2 inches. It's only been 10 minutes, and you can see little bubbles all around. That means we've got yeast growing in there, so we're in good shape. And now we're going to begin adding flour and begin our kneading process. I begin with the mixer on speed 1, and as soon as your dough starts to get a little stiff, you can change to speed 2. If you are afraid of this step and you don't know what your dough should feel like, you can go ahead and measure your milled flour. You could begin with 18 cups in your bowl, and you're going to want to use most of that. The weather affects how much flour you should need, the humidity levels, the type of wheat, the moisture in the wheat, so you could never be exact with the amount that you're going to need, but it's approximately 18 cups for this basic whole wheat bread recipe that calls for 6 cups of hot water. As your dough gets stiffer, you're going to begin kneading. So you don't want to over knead. But don't be afraid to begin adding flour. Then as your dough begins to get stiffer, you can go a little bit slower. But of course, if you have it all measured out, if you care to do that, and you have 18 cups of whole wheat flour in your bowl, we've used some in the beginning step to make the thick batter. We'll use most of it for the remaining step. As my dough began to get stiffer, I turned on speed 2, and that's what we'll knead on. You can see that we'll go just a little bit slower there. You see that the sides of the bowl are beginning to clean, and also the dough is beginning to pull away from the center post. At this point, you're going to want to set your timer. You're going to want to knead it for about somewhere between 5 and 7 minutes. I set the timer for 6 minutes. Okay, we take off the splash ring, and you want to have a clean counter. We're going to put a little bit of oil on our hands, and also a little bit of oil on our counter. We don't want to add more flour to our dough. We already have it good enough. That is probably the main problem most people have with making bread, is they add too much flour. And so they get a heavy dough, and their bread is dry and crumbly. Okay, you just twist your bowl and take it off the mixer base. Turn your bowl over. You have an oiled counter here. So I'll spray my pans. If you use a scale, you can get all your dough the exact same weight, and all your loaves will be formed very evenly. But if you're used to it, you can kind of judge it. All I do is take my large piece of dough, pinch off the amount, and fold them under. Place them in the pan and pat it down, just like that. Whole wheat dough, you can feel it, it's soft, it's not heavy, so I know I don't have too much flour. I take a sharp knife and I just score them twice, or you can make an X, or you can make any kind of design that you like. Make sure it's about 1/2 inch deep. You can also use kitchen shears and go right down through the middle, or you can make an X. And just cutting the loaves like that helps any air pockets that are in it to be released, and you don't have any cracked edges on the side when your loaves are raised. Let me just show you a real easy way to do rolls. You just take your dough and you just put your hand like this, and you just pinch off that much. You can feel the same amount every time to make them all evenly sized. We'll get a roll pan and put those in a roll pan. Okay, I'm spraying my roll pan. You just set your rolls in here. If you've got some leftovers or you want to do something different, you can make a free-form loaf like this and put it on a baking sheet. Cut a nice big X in the middle. And you could brush it with egg or sesame seeds or something and have a big sandwich loaf. 30 minutes has passed. Our timer just finished beeping, and you can see what the 4 loaves look like after they've risen. And here we have our pan of whole wheat rolls. I usually put, if I'm not going to make 6 loaves of bread, then I'll usually put the rolls in about 20 minutes after rising and let them bake for about 15 minutes, and right about then our bread is ready to go in, and it can bake for 30 minutes. I've just pulled the loaves out of the oven. They've baked for 30 minutes, they rose for 30 minutes, and usually I like to let them sit in the pan for just about 5 minutes. That will let them cool just a little bit in the pan. It creates just a little bit of sweat around the inside of the pans, and then they just pop right out. You can see the nice golden color all the way around. If you have problems with your bread being gooey in the middle, or unevenly baked, or burn spots, you need to check the elements in your oven or the thermostat, because a good oven is very key to making nice home-baked bread. So for about 1.5 hours time, 30 minutes of that the bread was rising, and 30 minutes it was baking, so it didn't take too long of your time. We have 4 large loaves of whole wheat bread from freshly milled grain. We have some rolls that we can either give away to a neighbor or to a friend or have for supper. And my children have already eaten the teddy bear, all gone.